Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks to Jody, Max, and the whole team. The whole team over at the Santa Monica Karma Thegsum Chöling. Appreciate you inviting me to come and talk with you this weekend. I wish, as I had mentioned the last time we got together, I just wish so much that we could all actually be together. But I do understand that because of the circumstances we're in right now, the difficult time we're in right now, it's not possible for us to be together physically. But we can be together in the way that counts, which is in the heart. And so this is our, what do you want to say? This is our attempt to bring some Dharma goodness into your living room, and to have some teaching and sharing time. So what I wanted to do today is I was asked to talk about the Bodhisattva path, and so I'm going to be talking about the Bodhisattva path and how we're going to do the program is that I will be speaking for maybe 10 or 15 minutes at a time, and then I'll pause frequently. Every 10 or 15 minutes I will pause for questions. It's not easy for me to both give my teaching and to watch things in chat. So I won't be able to read the questions in chat as they come up, but I will stop from time to time and look at the chat and answer questions there. So if you have a question, go ahead at any time. If you have the chat function, go ahead and write your question in chat. And then when the time comes for me to stop for questions, I can take your question at that time. So that's, I think, the main thing to start with today.
Kathy?
Yes?
We can monitor the chat for you, and we can tell you when you tell us what time it is.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good to me. I'll let you know when we get to when I get to a stopping place, and then I can look at chat at that time. So yeah, if you see anything that you need to answer between now and when that when the first question period arises, feel welcome to read those and answer those as you can. So okay, yeah, all right. So this is anyway. I don't know what to say except I'm going to stop at the beginning here, and I'm going to do a few prayers. And there's a saying in Buddhism. The saying is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. Sometimes they use the word excellent. Excellent at the beginning, excellent in the middle, excellent at the end. And these three excellences are what we should embrace our Dharma activity with. Our Dharma activity, our activity of spiritual life can and should be embraced by the three excellences. Excellent at the beginning is our motivation and intention. Thinking, I dedicate this session of teaching or practice or discussion, I dedicate this to the betterment of myself and all sentient beings. And then that's the good at the beginning. Good in the middle is that I will do my best to be patient and attentive during the presentation and to participate coming from a place of genuine interest, and just basically to maintain that motivation of doing the practice or session for yourself and the benefit of others, maintaining that as you undergo the program itself. And then excellent at the conclusion is, again, turning your mind to your motivation and dedicating the goodness of your session to the benefit of yourself and all sentient beings. So that way we get to bring all sentient beings with us in our in our class, and we get to bring all sentient beings with us in our prayer and in our meditation. So in that way, we'll begin with the excellence at the beginning. The first thing you'll hear is a short Sanskrit Dharani. The word Dharani, I'm trying to type it in chat. The word Dharani means it's a longer mantra. Everybody knows short mantras such as Om Mani Padme Hum or Om Mani Padme Hum, which is a way of saying Chenrezig's name, the Bodhisattva of compassion. It's a way of saying his name and calling upon his compassion. But a Dharani is a slightly longer mantra that generally has a specific purpose. Many Dharanis were spoken by Shakyamuni Buddha before, during, or after he gave teachings, specific teachings. And he gave their meanings, and he also gave their purposes. The purpose, I don't know the meaning of this Dharani, but the purpose of this Dharani is to dispel all obstacles for the people who are participating, and to dispel any lack of motivation or attention by any of us, and also to dispel any problems in the person who's presenting. You know, there's always, those of you who remember from school when we got the diagram, that diagram communication from person A to person B, and sometimes the communication goes really well, and sometimes the communication does not go well, and it doesn't come through. And so this Dharani is about improving that movement of information from one place to another. And then I'll recite a prayer of refuge in English, and then after that, one more Tibetan prayer, asking for the presence of the masters of our lineage. So place your mind in a state of calm, stability, and prayer. And you can join in if you know these, and if they're unfamiliar to you, you can join in your heart, thinking that you dedicate this session to all sentient beings. Teyata shame shamawati shamita satru kure marisite karata kaire tezawati uliana vishuddha namale manapaniye kukure kaka krase grasana omuki paramuki amuki shamitwani savagraha pandanane nigritiva savaparapra wadina vimukta marapasasta vidva buddhamudra anagatita savamari putsa rita parishuddha vigat santru sarva karma Mahakarma ni or Sonam Dei Tamche Zipani. That's a dedication prayer. Sorry, got to do the refuge instead. Sanjay Chudon Suchi Chunamla Janchu Bardu Dani Chapsuchi Daji Jin Suji Pe Sonamji Drala Penshir Sanjay Druparsho. To the Buddha, his teaching, and the order most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all that lives. Semchen tamche dewa tang dewe yu tang den park yu chi, dungyao tang dungyaki yu tang drawa ju chi, dunya mepe dewa dampa tamen drawa ju chi, nerin chan dan tang drawe tang yen chen pola nepa jure chi. For all sentient beings, may all sentient beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May they have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they have that great joy, which is freedom from suffering. May they come to dwell in great equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. O Palden Sawe Lama Rinpoche, Dagi Chiwar Pede Den Shula, Kadrin Jembo Gorneche Sunte. Kusum tugging a drip sal to soul. Okay, thanks very much. Today I've been asked to talk about the Bodhisattva path. And this is part of one of the many teachings that the Buddha Shakyamuni gave 2,500 years ago in India when he was alive and when he was teaching. The teaching comes to us today through a lineage of masters who have passed it down from 25,000 years ago through a lineage of teachers and students to our present day. So the teachings, even though they have the heritage of 2,500 years of age, even though they are ancient teachings, they are still fresh and alive for us because they have been passed down from teacher to student in an unbroken lineage from that time to the present. This allows them to be alive because they've been lived out. These practices and teachings have been lived out in the lives of so many practitioners from this time until now. And so we're very fortunate to have this opportunity to talk about these ancient teachings that are nonetheless still fresh and still part of our world today. If we look at the Buddhist teaching as a whole, the Buddha taught about suffering, its causes, and its solutions. A long time ago, when the Buddha was teaching in India, he was asked by a disciple, Teacher, please tell us, how did this world begin? And the Buddha is said to have replied by saying, with another question. He said, if I am shot with an arrow, he said, my first question is not going to be, I wonder, what was the face of the woman who was the mother of the person who shot me? He said, my teaching is not about such things. It's not about the beginnings of the world or the supernatural. It's about ending suffering. It's about pulling out the arrow and ending the suffering. And so in that way, the Buddhist teachings show us how we as human beings suffer in this world and how through the practices of mindfulness and meditation and compassion and wisdom, through these teachings, we can ourselves reduce and then eventually eliminate suffering and then bring goodness to our lives and the lives of others. And so if the Buddha during his time of teaching, he gave 4 truths known by the noble. The first of these is that to understand suffering is very important. So we have to know, K-N-O-W, we have to know suffering. And to know suffering is to know that it is part of life. So the first of the truths known by the noble is that suffering is part of life. The second is that suffering has a cause. The third is that suffering has a solution. And the fourth is that there is a path that leads to the end of suffering. The first of these, that suffering is a fact of life or part of life, is something we might know on an intellectual basis, but it's something we may not totally accept internally. We may say, yes, everybody has suffering. But if we ourselves experience suffering, sometimes we cannot accept the suffering we're experiencing. Instead of accepting the suffering we're experiencing, we tend to look outward and perhaps even blame other people for our suffering. Oh, it's this person's fault, or oh, it's that person's fault. Or if only I had this, I wouldn't suffer. Or if only I had that, I wouldn't suffer. And we tend to look outward and we don't accept our suffering. Instead, we try to run away to one of 2 extremes. The one extreme is the extreme of the sort of blind expression, and the other is blind suppression. So we either blindly express our dismay at suffering, or we blindly suppress our dismay about our suffering. In other words, we are not present with the suffering. We can't remain present with it. We have to run away from it. This is our habit, and we have developed this habit at least for as long as we've been alive. But if you believe in the Buddhist teachings that all of us have minds that were never created and therefore can never go out of existence. This means that our mind's existence stretches infinitely into the future, but also infinitely into the past. So we can see that through many, many lifetimes, we have developed the habit of not accepting our suffering and trying to run away from the suffering by either blindly suppressing our reaction to it or blindly expressing our reaction to it. We might become angry at our suffering. We might act hatefully toward ourselves or act hatefully toward others. Or we might try to pretend that we don't have this suffering. Maybe we'll blame someone. Maybe we'll blame ourselves. In other words, because we can't sit with our own feelings, we run away. And this causes, you could say, compounded suffering. It's like, what do they do in banking? Compounded interest on your money. You can get compounded interest on your suffering the more you run away and fail to accept it. So this was the human condition that the Buddha described in his first noble truth. We experience suffering. It is part of our life. We can't give it to somebody else. We have to work with it. But we also have to look at the causes of suffering, because if we don't look at the causes of suffering, how will we be able to remedy suffering that we have in our life? And so during the time of the Buddha, and this is according to the teachings of Trungpa Rinpoche in his book, The 12 Links of Interdependence. At the time that the Buddha was alive, there were two popular theories about the cause of suffering. One theory was that the gods caused suffering. The gods caused you to suffer. Therefore, you had to pray to and placate the gods so they wouldn't cause your suffering. On the other hand, the other theory was that there was no cause to suffering and everything is chaos. Everything in the universe was chaos. And so the Buddha rejected both of these causes for suffering. He said there's no chaos and there's no gods causing our suffering. Instead, he said, he took a middle path and he said, all suffering comes from causes. It's not chaos and it's not ordained by the gods. It comes from causes. And he said, suffering is caused by our own fixation, grasping, and clinging. Fixation, we fixate on things as being what we think they are, and then we grasp them and cling to them. And as Pema Chodron, the great Buddhist teacher, once said, if something hurts so much, it's because I'm holding on so tight. We cling to people, we cling to situations, we cling to ideas. You only need to watch television and see all the arguing heads to know how people cling to ideas. So we have so many things that we cling to, and this clinging causes our suffering. We want things to be other than they really are. The world is impermanent and always changing, and yet somehow we want the world to continue and to be as it is and never change. Or maybe we want it to change, but only in specific ways that suit ourself. So, for example, the Buddha said, of all of the things we cling to, the thing we cling to are the most is our own concept of self, me or I, me or I. We cling to that the most. We believe that there is an entity that is permanent, solid, real, and unchanging that is experiencing this world. And this me or I is what we cling to more than anything else. So self-clinging, you could say, is the original clinging. We cling to self, and therefore we see the whole world in reference to self, friends, enemies, neutrals, and so on. So if we can somehow come to understand the cause of suffering as grasping and clinging, we might be able to practice the third of the Four Noble Truths, which is the path, which is freedom from the cause of suffering. In other words, if suffering has a cause, it has a solution. It's just logic. If you can cause something to happen, you can unmake that cause and eliminate it. And so that leads us to the fourth noble truth, which is the path that leads to the end of suffering, which consists of the Eightfold Noble Path of right intention, speech, action, livelihood, and so on. But I prefer to explain it in terms of the Buddha's four statements. Do no harm whatsoever, practice virtue as much as possible, and tame your mind. For this is the teaching of the Buddha. Do no harm means to not harm yourself and not harm others. Practice virtue means to take care of yourself and benefit others. And tame your mind means to practice mindfulness and meditation so that your mind becomes stable and clear and you can understand and see the processes of how suffering comes into being and then make changes in how suffering comes into being for yourself. Meditation is key to these four teachings, these three teachings actually, because the last one was just a summary where he said there is no other teaching of the Buddha than do no harm, practice virtue, and tame your mind. So taming of the mind is essential because otherwise, how will we know what is beneficial and what is harmful? There's no way we would know. And so by practicing in this way, we come to an understanding of harm and benefit and understand how to cultivate benefit and the causes of happiness and reduce clinging and fixation and the causes of suffering through harm. So that's a little bit about the basics of Buddhist teaching. Now, if we look deeply into those first two statements of the Buddha, do no harm and practice virtue, and then also the third one, taming your mind. If we look into these, there are several levels on which we can practice this. We can practice in any one of the three methods taught by the Buddha. He taught the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. The Hinayana is for those of us who, when we first start practicing Buddhism, first start practicing spiritual life, it's our motivation is mainly for ourself. And there is no currently existing Hinayana school of Buddhism. It's not like that. But what there is the Hinayana motivation. Hinayana is called smaller vehicle. Yana means vehicle. I'll put that in chat. So yana means vehicle or method. And Hinayana is the vehicle of individual liberation. So in other words, it's not a currently existing school of Buddhism, but what it is it describes how we start our practice. Frequently, people will come to me and say, my family wants me to learn meditation, or my therapist wants me to learn meditation, or somebody has asked me that I should learn meditation, or maybe I think I need meditation. So frequently people will come to learn meditation because they're experiencing some kind of discomfort or suffering in their life, and they need some methods to help them work with that. And so they come for their own individual liberation from the suffering that they're experiencing. And some of the facets of the Hinayana path are mindfulness, learning how to practice meditation, and then also ethics, because the Buddha taught suffering and its causes, and on the causes of suffering, he said harm. If we harm ourselves and harm others, this is the cause of our suffering now and in the future. When we harm others, we create within ourselves an atmosphere of, I'm going to call it like, it's not disease, but it's, we create inside ourselves a discomfort, and that discomfort manifests as our suffering. For example, I like to tell the story of someone I used to work with years ago who was a big gossip. The person loved to gossip about other people, always was telling everybody's business to everybody. But that person's biggest fear was that other people were gossiping about them. And so they, through their action and their repeated action of gossiping, they created this world or atmosphere in which everybody was gossiping. just like them. And we see this time and time again in public life. People who experience difficulty often will look outward and blame others for things that actually are their own doing. And so we create our own world. If we look at the Buddha's initial book of sayings, the Dhammapada, which summarizes his teachings of the Hinayana, he says, we are what we think, all that we are arises with our thoughts, and with our thoughts, we make the world. So as we think about things, so we experience. So if I am thinking, I am the most important person in my world and everybody must do what I say, then the instant somebody doesn't do what we say, then we're unhappy, angry, and upset. So in a way, we've created our karmic situation. You could even call it our karmic prison. We've created our own situation by the things we do, think, and say. And this is why both meditation, calming the mind, and bringing the mind to stability and clarity is so important at the outset. And this is why ethics are so important. Because if we can practice clarity and stability in mind, ethics will follow naturally. We will begin to recognize what we do that harms ourselves and what we do that harms others, and we will naturally reduce the harm we do to ourselves and the harm we do to others. Some of our habits are incredibly stubborn and they will not change right away. But as we practice meditation, those of you who have practiced, you know the methodology of meditation. When you're practicing meditation, what do? You place your attention on an object. Let's say it's your breath, and you place your attention on the breath, and the breath comes in, and the breath goes out, and the breath comes in and goes out, and you pay attention to that movement of the breath. But you will only be able to pay attention to it for a short time before your mind becomes fatigued. And when your mind becomes fatigued, it gets a little bit bored. And then thoughts start arising in your mind. Some teachers call this the monkey mind. And their mind goes from here to there to everywhere as a way of escaping what one thinks of as suffering, the boredom of this moment that we're not busy in. And so what does the technique of meditation teach us to do with our monkey mind? My favorite description of this is the one that Mingyur Rinpoche gave recently, when he said, in order to tame your monkey mind, you have to give your monkey a job. Give your monkey a job. And so the job that we give to our monkey mind in meditation is watchfulness. We ask the monkey to watch. And then when a thought arises that captures our attention and takes us away from our meditation, the job of the monkey is to notice and to then undertake a remedy. And the remedy is noticing that one is distracted from the object of meditation, noticing it. You can even label it, thinking, and then you can let it go. And then the technique is to return your attention to the breath for a fresh start. So we are giving ourselves a fresh start in meditation. And then what will happen is we'll have another short period of attention that will then be followed by another period of mental wandering that will then be handled in the same way, noticing, labeling, releasing, and returning. At first, this process will be artificial. It will have to think our way through each of the steps, but eventually we will notice, let go, and return instantly. And by doing this, we interrupt the flow of thought. And we recognize something about our minds that we may not have recognized before, which is that thoughts are discontinuous. Thoughts actually have beginnings, a middle, and an end. And this discovery that your thoughts are not like a river of concrete, but actually more like a flowing river of water that is always changing and moving. And therefore, it can be, the thoughts themselves can be changed, just like your attention can be redirected. So by learning how, in the practice of meditation, to let go of a single thought and then return, doing this again and again and again, it shows us that our thoughts are discontinuous, and it shows us that our thoughts can be changed. And recognizing that thought can be changed is the first realization that most people have in their Buddhist practice. The realization that I can let go of a thought. And when I let go of that thought, the world that is created by that thought disappears. And so when we learn how to let go of a single thought, learning to let go of a single thought is the beginning of change in our mind. If we recognize that we do not need to think that thought, or shall I say, the thought doesn't need to think us. We don't need to allow that thought to think us. If we can let go of a single thought, that means that our mind is actually workable, that we can actually change our habits, because what are our habits except these thoughts all chained and woven together in a net? And so these thoughts that are chained and woven together in a net create all of our experience of the world. And recognizing this is part of what allows us to change in our life. So the Hinayana methodology, beginning with mindfulness, which teaches us to notice, let go, and return, and ethics, which teaches us to benefit others and not harm them. This is the basis for our gradual reduction in suffering. The second of the paths of the Buddha is the Mahayana, and this is actually called the larger vehicle, but it can also be called the vehicle of liberation for all. You can see how the techniques of the Hinayana allow us to calm our mind and clarify our mind so that it becomes more peaceful. And by changing our actions, we have less instability in our mind from all the bad karma we would normally be creating. If we can abstain from creating negative karma, then we won't have the suffering that comes from that karma. So that's a part of the practice of the Hinayana. But in the Mahayana, we're encouraged to practice more virtue. We're encouraged to practice love and compassion, as well as an understanding of wisdom and the nature of all things. So these two things, love and compassion and understanding wisdom, are called bodhicitta. Bodhi means awakening, meaning you awaken to the truth of how things really are. And citta means, let's see if I'm going to have autocorrect hit me here. And citta means mind. So the mind that wants to awaken, the mind of awakening. There are two types of bodhicitta, relative and ultimate. And relative bodhicitta is the love and compassion. And it's called relative because it has to do with how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to the world. And ultimate bodhicitta has to do with understanding wisdom. And it's called ultimate because it describes the ultimate mode of existence of all things. This roughly translates, or roughly is related to the two truths. It's said that the Buddha taught on two levels simultaneously. He taught on the relative truth, he taught relative truth, and he taught ultimate truth. I like the way that Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche described this. He said the relative truth is the truth of how things appear in this world. And then the ultimate truth is the truth of how things really are. And so on the relative level, everything appears to be solid, real, permanent, and unchanging. But on the ultimate level, things are actually moving and changing all the time. And so if we can understand both the relative and the ultimate level, then we will attain Buddhahood. So this is where, this is why it's called the vehicle for liberation of all, because we're seeking to awaken both ourselves and all beings. And what I tell people is that when the Mahayana, when it's time to start practicing the Mahayana, when you're sitting in meditation and suddenly you become aware that there are other people in the room with you. This is, by the way, based on the teachings of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. He was the first one who said this, and it really struck me. He said, you're sitting there meditating and suddenly you realize that there are other people in the room with you, and they're probably suffering too. And your awareness of their presence makes you aware of their suffering, and being aware of their suffering, this is the birth of empathy. Awareness of others' suffering is the birth of empathy. And empathy then can lead to the wish for others to be happy. Because we want to be happy. So when we're aware, and so when we are aware of our suffering, we try to relieve our suffering. But we're not always aware of the suffering of other people. But when we become aware of it, we give birth to this wish to free them from suffering as well. So then empathy this can lead to formulating the wish that others be happy. And this is the Buddhist definition of love. And then we would also, this can also lead to the wish that others are free of suffering. And that is the Buddhist definition of compassion. And so in this way, practicing meditation leads to more awareness of our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, which can help us reduce our suffering through reducing the causes of suffering, which are negative actions, and increasing the causes of happiness, which is positive actions. Through the practice of ethics and so on, we can begin to get relief from some of our suffering, and then we can move on to consciously cultivating these things. The conscious cultivation of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. This is called the four immeasurables. And when Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche taught on the four immeasurables a number of years ago in Columbus, he taught them backwards. He said, even though they're listed in this order, love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, he said, it's really better to teach them in an opposite direction. He said, all of the positive emotions of love and compassion, they arise, all of these emotions arise from recognizing that other people are just like us. If we can recognize that other people are suffering in exactly the same ways we're suffering, maybe not at the same time, but in the same way, if we can see and be aware of the suffering of other people, then we will have this tug of empathy, and this tug of empathy will help us to give birth to the wish to benefit others. And this wish to benefit others can come to fruition in wishing for their happiness, which is the Buddhist definition of love, wishing for them to be free of suffering, which is the Buddhist definition of compassion. And by practicing love and compassion, this is the cause for the experience of joy. So joy arises as a natural side effect of practicing love and compassion and practicing equanimity. So I wanted to start today by talking about these two attitudes, the attitude of the Hinayana of liberating oneself, and how that, by practicing that, it leads us into the experience of empathy, which then allows us to begin to practice the Mahayana, love and compassion for ourselves and for others. So I'll stop here. I talked for a whole long time, sorry, this happens sometimes. But let's see what questions have arisen. Oh yes, the monkey mind line. Yes, that was Nyongyi Mingyur Rinpoche. And so, are there other questions? We'll look. I don't see any in chat. So, does anybody have a question from in audio?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it first starts out with an observation
Mm-hmm.
that this wanting happiness for others and feeling compassion for others, it's like in a way right in front of me, but in another way kind of elusive. And sometimes I really feel it towards others, and then sometimes I'm completely consumed with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems so, profound and simple, but it's like hidden right in front of our heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
So I'd like you to comment on that.
Sure. You know what? I think your description is the description for all of us. I think that I think that most people, I can't say 100% of people because that would be impossible, right? But I think for many, many people, we experience this in that according to Trungpa Rinpoche in his book Vivid Awareness, he says our karma is coming to fruition serially, so that means that it's coming to fruition in the order in which it was accumulated. So it's like we're always experiencing the effects of our previous actions, thoughts, and words. And we experience them as thought states, as physical feelings. We're always experiencing the fruition of our karma. And so I think what you're saying makes perfect sense. So this would mean that some days in the morning or in the afternoon, we're going to feel wonderful and feel very kindly disposed toward ourselves and others. And then at other times, we're going to feel very low and not kindly disposed toward ourselves and not kindly disposed toward others. And so it's going to be very hard to maintain a thread of intention. You see what I'm saying? Because there will be times when we are consumed with ourselves, those low periods when we are completely consumed with our own suffering and our own problems. And there'll be other times when we are more open to and accepting of others. And this is why I think they talk about this thread of intention. It's like a thread of intention. It's called the Bodhisattva intention. And this is why it's consciously cultivated. And I think that's kind of what you're looking for, because this is why when a person takes the Bodhisattva vow in the Tibetan tradition, we are frequently encouraged by our teachers to remember this Bodhisattva vow at least morning and evening. But if we can remember it at noontime and during the night, that'd be great. But that's 4 times a day. Most people can't do that. It's just too much. So, for example, I myself, I have it put into my telephone reminders. I always do the Bodhisattva vow in the morning when I wake up, and I also do it before I go to sleep at night, at least stating my intention to be of benefit to others, to work for the benefit of others. And then I also have an alarm on my phone set for 4 o'clock every day, and it basically asks just a few words. It says, how's your Bodhisattva vow? How is it?
That's great.
And so I then reflect, like, have I helped people in the last little while, or have I harmed people in the last little while? What have I been doing with my mind during these last hours? And in that way, and then I retake the Bodhisattva vow as an aspiration to do better in the next part of the day. So I think that because of karma, we will go through periods of being preoccupied with ourselves. But if we can maintain this thread of intention, and Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche describes this thread of intention, first, you can develop it first as a wish. First is a wish. May all beings be happy and have the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. It starts as a wish. And then he says, you maintain the wish throughout the day. And yes, at first it's artificial and it seems uncomfortable. But if you see people, wish them well. If you hear about a person suffering, wish them well. And by continuously training ourselves in this wish, he said the wish can start a momentum of goodness. I'm not spelling it right. Momentum. Oh, I see. He says it will start a momentum of goodness within you that can eventually become self-sustaining. That's the way he put it. This was how he explained it. And so this is why we need to train. Because if we train in this thought and this intention, then it will stick with us even when we're having low periods of self-absorption. Lojong, which is the word for mind training, is a Tibetan system of practice where we train in the motivation and we train in the actions that carry out that motivation. But in the training of Lojong, they sort of, I guess you could say, they embed a triggering device. For example, when we're feeling suffering, we are asked in the Lojong teachings to at that moment when we feel the tug of that suffering, the moment we feel the tug of that suffering, we are taught to try to engender the thought, may my suffering contain the suffering of all beings, and by my working with this suffering, may I and all beings be free from suffering. So it's teaching us to try to grab hold of the practice when we feel that tug of selfishness. And if we can do that, then even our self-absorbed moments contain within them the potential to break out of the selfish motivation, that even the most selfish moment of our life can be broken out of with this thread of intention. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Okay, other questions?
Well, sort of following along with that, Lama Kathy, it's so great to see you always.
Likewise.
Yeah, with the idea of sometimes it can be too much with that bodhicitta intention, and it just starts feeling like too much. Um, I just left California and came to this new. I'm like out in the middle of nowhere where I don't know anybody, and I don't have a car.
Uh-oh.
And everything's working perfectly, you know, everything, food showing up, everything. But I did this so I could, you know, practice the Dharma more. And I am, but I'm suffering way more mood swings than I thought I would.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
can't sleep. It's like
Aw.
my mind is, I hear it
Yeah.
so loud because there's nothing else.
Right.
I was wondering if you could comment on that. And I also have a whole other thing about how to be able to, what to send to have put in the stupa, which
Oh, sure.
from the
Yeah.
bookstore. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, sure. No problem. No problem. The first thing is, you know, I really feel for the dislocation that a person feels when they move from one location to another. It's actually harder on us than we think. Even a cross-country air flight is very disruptive, and then to completely relocate from a climate where sunshine is there all the time to a climate where cloudiness interferes with our experience of the sun. I think that it can really, it will take a while, I think, for the adjustment to come. What I've done, because I live in Ohio, which is one of the cloudier places on the planet because we're south of the Great Lakes. What we've done here at the house is that we keep all of the drapes open all day long to help bring some sun in, and then we try to go out when the sun is shining and get some sun on us. I think that will help. If you have the capacity to talk with or consult with a person who practices Tibetan or Chinese medicine, they can also give you some tips about how to work with the dislocation, the feeling of physical and emotional and psychic dislocation. It's just going to take you a while to kind of get rooted in your current location. From the Tibetan point of view, I'm not going to speak about Tibetan medicine since I don't have training in that. Mm-hmm. But what occurs to me is that making friends in your neighborhood doesn't just mean meeting your neighbors. You can actually do a Tibetan practice, which is an outdoor incense offering. You can take even just one stick of incense and put it in a flower pot or put it somewhere outside. And then from the safety and warmth of your home, you can make aspirations and make imagine that all of the incense smoke becomes the wondrous things of this world, offerings for the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, offerings for the Dharma protectors, offerings for the beings of the six realms, offerings for all of your karmic creditors. And by doing this, you can become more grounded in your location, and you'll get the help and assistance of all of the beings that live there, the ones you can see as well as the ones you don't see. It's like making friends with your environment to do this. And it builds a connection, a bridge with that. And then I think the second thing that you were wondering about in this dislocation is how to work with the sleeplessness and the dislocation. I do think, again, this is just the natural outcome of leaving a sunny environment. I think that there's a lot to say about that. And so anything you can do to stay in contact with other people, and even if you have to do like we're doing here, we're doing a teleview, you know, we're looking at each other and things like that. Just seeing people and talking to people is good. Working on your Bodhisattva motivation to transform your experience for the benefit of beings, saying, well, I'm going through this bardo, you know. Bardo means in between, right? Yeah. Bardo means in between. So I'm going through this bardo of relocation.
Mhm.
and I'm seeking to get grounded in my new location. And I think that finding ways to be grounded in your new location will be super helpful. And I don't know, did that cover things, or was there a part of that question that I missed? That part of the
That's
question.
great. I never would have thought of that. Thank you.
Yeah, it takes time. It really takes time to kind of settle down, and because it's a completely different experience for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're human, and so we have brains that think a lot, and so we've often been able to use our brains to think our way out of problems that it may not be, these tools may not be available to animals of other kinds, but guess what? We're still animals. And we still respond to sunlight and all of these things. And it's also the change of season too. So you have all of these things that are sort of working on you.
Everything's changing.
Yeah, so we can talk more about that, but that's my thought right now. Now you mentioned something, and this is something that other folks on our session may not know about, but Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, who was the founder of the Santa Monica Center and all the Dharma centers around the U.S., he passed away last year on October the 6th. And as we approach the anniversary of his passing away, which is actually he has two dates. The solar date of his passing was October 6th, and the lunar date was the 8th day of the 9th Tibetan month. And so, so this year, the 8th day of the 9th Tibetan month will be October 24th. And what's unique about this is it is the same day as the parinirvana, or the death of the 16th Karmapa. It's the same lunar day. They died on different solar days, but it was the same lunar day. And so what's happening is that not too far from where you are, Suki, they're building this stupa to commemorate Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, and they are seeking precious things to put in the stupa. And if you don't have any precious things yourself to give to put in the stupa, you can write to or call the Namse Bangso bookstore. And then what they have is they have bags of semi-precious gems. And so you can purchase these from KTD bookstore, and then send them. And then he'll actually send them for you up to Carmeling, and you can dedicate that purchase toward any one you choose. It can be a friend, a loved one. You can dedicate that to yourself and those other beings. So that's what I'm encouraging. Because the other thing that he has there is he also sells incense, and incense is also something that people have been sending. So I don't know if that helps.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I kind of bogged down when I read on the website that it said incense, and then I went to the Namse books, the bookstore, and there were so many different kinds of incense, and I didn't really know what additional.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
The semi-precious, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what kind of incense.
No, doesn't matter. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for questions, and I appreciate it. And I'll pray for your relocation, that everything settles out. It will settle out, because I remember what it was like to change time zones. Sleep problems arise when you cross time zones. They call it jet lag, but it can last for weeks. It can actually last for weeks. So, well, I did promise you guys a break. And even though I know not everybody has asked their questions yet, I'd like to offer you a 5-minute break now. I'm going to turn off my camera and sound for 5 minutes, but I will be back. And it is now 8 past the hour. So at 13 minutes past the hour, I think that's right, I'll be back. Okay, so see you in a bit.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks. All right. Let's see. Thanks for coming back. I'm not totally beyond attachment, so it's good to see you back. Yeah. We can refresh our Bodhisattva motivation here. All right. Now, I was in the midst of doing questions, and before I move on, I do want to double check and see if anybody else has a question before I move on to the next topic in the Bodhisattva topic. Okay. I don't see any questions in chat, and I'm not hearing any questions here for audio. So I think we're ready to move into the next aspect of the training. So if we want to be a bodhisattva, what do we do? If we want to be a bodhisattva, what do we do? How do we practice? Let's see. The way to practice is to first, I think, engender the wish that Khenpo Rinpoche talked about, that becomes this continuous thread that pervades and it is the basis for our practice in life. I think that's the first thing we do, is we embed this, and we try to repeat this to ourselves frequently. And this is why, for many people, taking the Bodhisattva vow is a good thing to do. Even if you don't have the physical situation of being with a teacher and taking the Bodhisattva vow from a teacher, you can take the Bodhisattva vow on your own by thinking that, from now until enlightenment is reached, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And then the actual words of the vow go like this. They say, just as the Buddhas of the past engendered bodhicitta and stage by stage trained in the Bodhisattva discipline, so too do I now engender bodhicitta and will practice and vow to stage by stage practice, and as they did, become proficient. And so these are the exact words of the Bodhisattva vow. So this is what we could say to ourselves every day, or you could use the words of the 4-line refuge prayer that were written, attributed to Atisha, the Indian saint. When he first came to Tibet, he gave the vow of refuge to as many people as he could. And he wrote a short prayer of taking refuge that included the Bodhisattva motivation. It's the one we did at the beginning. In the Buddha, his teaching, and the order most excellent. By order most excellent, this means his Sangha. I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. Through the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all that lives. And let's look at this and how this reflects the Bodhisattva motivation. It starts with refuge. And refuge is the recognition of our potential. That if we recognize our potential to become enlightened beings ourselves, this means we also recognize that enlightenment is a state that human beings can reach. It's a state of power and capability. And so if we say, well, what is enlightenment? How do we define enlightenment? The Tibetan word for Buddha is Sanjay. And Oops, I'm sorry. I made a mistake here. Whoops, I made a mistake. I was typing this for everyone, but it went as a private chat. Sorry. Let's go to everyone. I'll repeat them for everybody. There we go. Yeah, refuge is recognition of our potential. And then what is enlightenment? Buddha, the word is sanjay. Sang means purified. And a J means ripened. And so this means that we make the aspiration that we will completely purify and remove our obstacles and obscurations. Obstacles and obscurations. Obstacles, there's a lot. That is our karmic accumulation, our habitual tendencies, our negative mental afflictions, and our obscuration is our inability to see the truth of how things really are. Which means we're not able to see things as being impermanent. We're not able to see our own selves as being impermanent. We're not able to see how things really are. And so we ask for the purification of our obstacles and our obscurations. And when we have this, and we do this purification of our obstacles and obscurations in many ways. We purify these by abstaining from harm. So that's one of the things we do. We abstain from harming others, and we also purify through prayer, mantra, and meditation. For example, there is something called the confession practice. Yes, believe it or not, those of you who grew up Catholic and thought becoming Buddhist, somehow things would change. No, we have confession too, sorry. And and if you think about it, we were the ones who placed the karmic seeds within us. There are two metaphors that are used for what karma does and how it works for us. Two metaphors. One is that karma is like a seed, and then the other is that karma is like an impression in clay. Whichever of these two that you use, it seems to be making an impression or planting something. So when we do, think, or say anything, and so that means action, thought, and word. Action, thought, and word creates a karmic seed or a karmic impression. And that until that seed comes to fruition, or whatever, until that seed comes to fruition, it's still there. And it's going to have an impact on us. And so we put it there so we can also take it out. And so the practice of confession is the sort of opposite of the placement of this. For example, in Trungpa Rinpoche's book, The 12 Links of Interdependence. So in his book, The 12 Links of Interdependence, he talks about the 4 parts of an action. He says there's the intention to do the action, there's the beginning of the action, there's the completion of the action, and then there's the satisfaction from the action. And so this means that we place karmic impressions and so on purposefully through our thoughts, words, and actions. So let's use the example I generally use because it's so easy is what if I see an insect and I don't like that insect and I want to kill that insect? So the first part, the intention is, oh, I see a bug. Do not like bug, must kill bug. I think that's my intention. The beginning of the action is the rolled up paper. And so I raise the rolled up paper and I'm going to strike the insect. And so that's the beginning of the action. You can kind of see what's happening here. We start out with an intention, but it's not much. It's actually hasn't got much power behind it. But there's an idea. But then we take action. We begin the action, and then we complete the action by smacking and killing the bug. And that deepens the impression of this karma. And then we say, ah, ha ha, I killed the bug. And we feel this satisfaction at having killed the bug. So in this way, it begins with a mere thought, which isn't that serious. It goes into the beginning of an action, which may not be completed. And then the completion of the action, and then the satisfaction at having completed the action. So in this way, the karma, it starts out being very light and gets heavier and heavier and heavier as we carry it out. And this is also true for good actions. We see a person who's struggling with something. Like maybe they're struggling crossing a street, or maybe they're struggling trying to carry something. And we think, oh, person in trouble, must help. That's the mental idea. Then there's I'm reaching out to grab that package that's falling, the beginning of the action, the catching of the action of the package, which is accepting it and then handing it to them and feeling great rejoicing in one's heart that one helps somebody. So you can do it for something negative, you can do it for something positive. So these 4 parts of an action help us to understand how we create our experience of the world through the things we think, say, and do. And so how do we purify an action? Well, there are the 4 parts of confession. I know they're not exactly, I've never heard a Buddhist teacher put these 2 together before. So it could be that I'm making 2 + 2 and getting 8, but I find it really interesting that there are 4 parts of an action and also 4 powers of confession. So the 4 powers, I misquoted that, of confession are reliance. We rely on the Buddha as our witness. And so the next one is regret. And that is where we recall and regret our action. And then there's the the remedy of the action, which can be the confession liturgy itself. By the way, a popular liturgy is the 7 branch prayer, because there's a confession in it. So the confession liturgy itself is the remedy, and then the resolution is at the end, where we resolve not to repeat the action. And so in this way, somebody asked Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, they said, well, how does this work exactly? And he said, he says, it's not like a watch. He says, I can't take this, take the watch off and tell you, how it works. I can't tell you how this works. It just works. But if you think about it, each of these things counteracts one of the four parts of an action. I mean, you can't say it's one for one, right? You can't say it's a one for one, but we have the regret, which counteracts the intention, and all of that sort of thing. So when we think about when we rely on the Buddha, we're no longer relying on ourselves. We're not being selfish. We're saying, Buddha, you got to help me here. We're giving up our self-directedness to the Buddha. And so that takes care of that part. Then we regret the action. So instead of being satisfied and rejoicing in our negativity, we have now said, okay, I regret this. And then we take action to remedy it and to resolve it. And then we say we're not doing it again. So in this way, we gradually reduce the amount of negativity that we do. And so this is how the four powers of confession help us to purify our negativity. And that's the first part of the word Buddha, or enlightenment. Jangchup is the other word for enlightenment in Tibetan. And Jang also means purification. And then Jangchup means accomplishment. And so what we do then in the Bodhisattva path is that we try to reduce the amount of negativity that we do. We try to purify the negativity we've already accumulated, and we try to accumulate virtue in its place. And by doing what is good and taking care of ourselves and being beneficial and holding a beneficial mind toward other beings, by holding this beneficial mind toward other beings, we slowly train ourselves. And so we ripen our natural qualities. And so this is how we attain enlightenment, by purifying our negativities and at the same time ripening our inner qualities. And in this way, we can become enlightened beings too. And so this is why at the beginning of that prayer, when we take refuge, we say, from now until enlightenment is reached, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So we take refuge in the Buddha because he accomplished enlightenment. We take refuge in the Sangha because they help explain the Dharma to us. So we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And the period of time from now until enlightenment is reached, that means we're taking refuge from now until forever, because the Bodhisattva intention is not just for this life. It's for all future lives. And so as such, when we take refuge and say, I do this from now until enlightenment, this means we are doing it with the Bodhisattva motivation, the broad and vast motivation of the Bodhisattva. And so by taking it from now until enlightenment is reached, we're broadening how we practice Dharma. We're broadening how we experience ourselves. We're broadening our potential to benefit others. We're taking it out of the sphere of just ourselves and broadening it to include everyone. This, to me, is the real Bodhisattva motivation. I have a guest. If I can get it. Okay, here we go. I'd like to introduce you to Ginger. Hello, Ginger. How's it going? So yes, there is going to be a puppet here in this teaching. I have no idea how this happened, but those of you who know me know that I like theater, movies, and TV. And one of my favorite movies of all time is Chicken Run. Now, the reason I like Chicken Run is because, not just because it came out after I got out of retreat, but Chicken Run is about Bodhisattva motivation. I have only used Ginger in talks 3 times. This, I think, is the 3rd time. So she doesn't come up often, but part of the reason that she comes up is because in the movie, it's a takeoff on Stalag 17. Anyway, but it's about a prison camp. It's called a farm, and and all the chickens are trying to escape. And a rooster flies in, and we're not even going to explain how that happens. And they ask him to help them get out. And of course, it's a comedy of errors. They do everything wrong, but they finally all do get out. But there's this pivotal moment in the dialogue where Ginger, he's saying, the rooster says, "I want to get out," and she says, "I'm not going unless we all go. Unless we all go, I'm not leaving." And so I say that Ginger is a bodhisattva because she did not want to leave the concentration camp. She did not want to leave the farm only by herself. She wanted them all to go, or she wasn't going. And so this is the attitude that, yes, this is the attitude. She's one of our preceptors. This is the attitude that we need to take when we're taking the Bodhisattva vow, is the attitude that I'm not leaving until everybody's out. And it's like we vow to be the person that stays behind in samsara and turns out the light at the end. So there you go. Thank you for visiting with us, Ginger. Chicken Run, great movie. Some scatological humor, but it's great. Okay, so there you go. By the way, I have one more story to tell you about the Ginger toy. And part of the reason that I still have it, because I did not buy this toy. This toy was bought for me by my mother. I got out of retreat in 1996, and I started teaching pretty much immediately. So I didn't get to see my mom very much, and my dad. But my mother had a habit of buying Christmas presents way before when they were needed, and she would throw them in closets, and then she would give them to me and things like this at Christmas. Well, she forgot Ginger. She bought Ginger, put her in the closet, and forgot about her. And this would have been 2002. And then Mom got sick and went in the hospital the week before Christmas. And she got out of the hospital like a day before Christmas, and she died 2 days after Christmas. And so she had no capacity. She was not well, so she could not find Ginger. She didn't even remember, I think, that Ginger was in the closet. And so I found Ginger when I was cleaning the closet after she passed away. We were cleaning up things to donate to charity. And in the bottom of her closet, there was a bag, and in the bag was Ginger. So this is my mom's what do you call it? Her contribution to my teaching career. So thanks, Mom. Thank you, Ginger. There you go. I keep her on my table over here. She's actually on my file cabinet. She's next to a mouse, a stuffed mouse that Kempo Karthar gave me. So I have all kinds of toys. So the reason I bring this up is because we need to have this broad motivation to benefit all sentient beings, that we want to be the one to help people gain enlightenment. And that this attitude of wishing to benefit others is a momentum of goodness that can become self-sustaining. So this is why we need to, on a day-by-day basis, and sometimes even a morning to afternoon to evening basis, remind ourselves that we've taken the Bodhisattva commitment. Remind ourselves to say, may everything I do be of benefit to beings. Because this wish all by itself is not enlightenment. But without this wish, we cannot attain enlightenment. So those of us who as children dressed up as superheroes, we put on the cape and pretended to be super person. or whatever. We vowed we wanted to save the world just like the superheroes. We wanted to save the world. And so that wish to save the world is still in us. And that wish to save the world is what's at the bottom of our Bodhisattva motivation. So just being able to take and hold that wish and support it with our daily practice. Support it by meditating every day. Support it by engendering the Bodhisattva motivation as many times a day as we can. To support it by doing our practice of lojong or mind training. And if you remember the lojong slogans, one of my favorite lojong slogans is 3 objects, 3 poisons, 3 seeds of virtue. If we can practice in this way, if we can practice recognizing that by experiencing our own negative mental afflictions and thinking, I take on the negative mental affliction of other beings in this affliction that I'm experiencing. May I and all beings be free of this mental affliction. Just by making that aspiration every day and remembering it when we are feeling negativity, or alternatively, when we're feeling happy and satisfied and so forth, that we mentally dedicate the goodness that we are experiencing, the happy feelings that we're experiencing, dedicating those to sentient beings. If we can do this, if we can practice like this and dedicate it to other beings, we're increasing our store of virtue. So it's my hope that talking about the Bodhisattva wish, talking about our potential for awakening, talking about taking the Bodhisattva commitment ourselves, renewing it daily, maintaining the wish to benefit beings in all situations. By thinking all of these things, we can bring bodhicitta alive for us in our life and make ourselves into bodhisattvas in training. So I think that's all I'm going to say for right this minute. Let's see if anybody has questions. I'm going to look at chat quickly. There's a question in chat. The renewal and review of the Bodhisattva vow in the morning, in the evening, noon, and night, and that 4 p.m., is this the formal recitation of a particular prayer, or is it informal reflection to be sure one's motivation is intact? I think it's both, actually, if you can do it. If you have a simple prayer memorized, like the 4-line refuge prayer, the 4-line refuge prayer actually contains the Bodhisattva vow inside it. Because what does he say? From now until enlightenment is reached, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, just as, like that, through the merit of generosity and other good deeds. Generosity and other good deeds here, it means the 6 perfect virtues. And the 6 perfect virtues are the path of the Bodhisattva. There's the aspiration bodhicitta, which is the wish to gain enlightenment, but there's also the action bodhicitta. So that means we have aspiration bodhicitta is the wish to gain enlightenment for the benefit of others. And sorry, I didn't spell those right. And then the action bodhicitta is the practice of the 6 perfect virtues. And so that's generosity and ethics, patience, diligence, meditation, and wisdom. And I put all of those in chat. And so these are so if you can reflect, if you can stop and reflect. I only do it 3 times a day because getting up in the middle of the night, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. So so my commitment is to do it in the morning and do it in the evening, but also at this 4 o'clock period, because it's just a time kind of when the day is, it's kind of like a pivot point for my personal day, when the work day is over and I'm pivoting toward evening. And so I pick that time and I reflect. Well, how have I done? Who have I helped? I rejoice in those that I've helped. Who have I harmed? I regret those I've harmed. And then I recite the 4-line refuge prayer as my Bodhisattva vow renewal. And since I have it memorized in Tibetan and in English, I can do it in either language. And so that's how I do it. So that was, I think that was, was that an okay? Yeah, it's both. It's okay, great. Thank you. Here's another, let's see. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, Lama Kathy. Hi.
Hello. Thank you.
Can I be a Bodhisattva in training and do everything you describe, morning and evening, to the best of my ability, and still dislike certain people passionately? Or because I do it, and there are certain people I'm very aware I really cannot stand them. And I feel such a hypocrite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I understand this. I think we have to recognize, we have to understand that we have lived many, many, many times, from many, many, many lifetimes. And so over all of that time, we have met many people, and some of them we have harmed, and some of them have harmed us. And so we have a lot of relationships that are karmic, that are in karma. They're kind of like set in karma. And so Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche talked about this last year or the year before when he taught about mind training. He said, we've met and known so many people. He says, have you ever met someone and you instantly liked them? He said, that's because you had a positive relationship in the previous life. And then he said, have you ever met someone and you instantly disliked them? He said, that's also because of a previous relationship that went bad. So he said, these kinds of instant feelings come from that. But you're talking also about this life, where you meet somebody and you don't like them. So the good news is that being a training to be a bodhisattva, we are bodhisattvas in training, right? We're not enlightened bodhisattvas yet, right? So we're not perfect yet. So we're bodhisattvas in training. And yes, we will still not like people. So the good news, thank you. The Bodhisattva in Training t-shirt, da-da! Thank you. Thank you for designing the t-shirt, Max. Appreciate that. Now, thanks for sharing that with us, Leona. So we're bodhisattvas in training, and you will have feelings about other people, and some you just can't stand them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's what you do. My teacher basically said, we should pray for the people we don't like. And he said, the reason we need to pray for the people we don't like is because, he said, while we are praying for them, we are not hating them. For that short period of time that we are saying, oh, may they have happiness and goodness, and may their minds be changed, may their minds be made kind, and may their minds change. This is a really good way to pray. Khenpo Rinpoche put it this way. He said, through the blessing of the Buddhas, let's see if I can remember it, and Bodhisattvas. I'm not going to say it right exactly. It's going to be a little bit wrong. Of the 10 directions and 3 times, may this person gradually transcend, meaning go beyond. Their current limitations, may they meet spiritual friends. I said meeting, sorry. May they meet spiritual friends. Enter the path and gain enlightenment. I think that's the way to pray for people you can't stand, because this way, for a few minutes every day, you don't hate them, which is good, because that way you don't have to feel like a total hypocrite, right? Because, you know, and then you wish for them to gain enlightenment. So you might try doing that. First, you do it just once a day, but then if it comes to your mind, if you think about them, and then instantly you say, they're a terrible person, then say, however, I wish for them to become a Buddha in the future. Then slowly these two feelings will get closer and closer and closer to each other. You see? Does that make sense?
It does, but it's still, I try to do it and I feel completely fake. It's like I'm faking it.
That's okay.
But maybe they will merge eventually.
Yeah,
I'm aware I'm lying. I mean, I'm lying to myself.
No, you're not. Yeah, the thing is, you're gonna love this. I have some friends. They're in the 12-step recovery tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous. They're trying to stop drinking, and they have these 12 steps that they practice. And some of the 12 steps, it's very hard, you know, to practice. And so they have a saying, fake it until you make it. They say, fake it till you make it. And Khenpo Rinpoche actually agrees with this approach. He agrees that at first our heart may not be in it, and it's just the words. He says it's better than nothing. You know, it's better. He says it really is. It's better than nothing. Because he said, for example, he said, if I have a cup and there's a little hole in the bottom of the cup, I pour the water in, it mainly stays in the cup. Little comes out, but it's mainly in the cup. He said, this is the attempt that we are making to change our behavior, to change our attitude. You know, he's not telling us to like these people. He's just telling us not to hate them. He's not telling us to have them move in with us, you know, so we don't have the people we can't stand. We don't have to invite them to move in. And we don't have to say that bad people are good. You know, we don't have to do that. We don't have to say that that person did not do wrong. Buddhists are not about like for example, Buddhists still put people in prison if they break the law, okay? Buddhists are not saying criminals have a good time. You know, go out and do what you want to do. Buddhists put criminals in jail, just like everybody else. But the problem comes when we hate them, because if we feel this resentment, anger, and hatred for them, it's actually burning a hole in us. It's actually hurting us. We have to recognize that causes us some distress. And this is why we have to work with our mind first. And the fake it till you make it, you know, we have to try. And even if we never succeed, we will not give up on our Buddha nature. And we will not give up on their Buddha nature either, you know. I don't know if this helps at all, but
it does. Thank you.
Just a little prayer. And like you can say, okay, that person really makes me mad. And they say, but may they become a Buddha. So slowly, you know, I mean, yes, it's fake, but what can we do? We have only this, right? So other people can share if they like, but it's worth it. Other questions that people might have. What if those people are praying for, we are praying for, are trying to do harm to us? Well, yeah, you can't ask them to move in with you, you know? Yeah, you have, you know, it's really, you have to be smart and you know, and not invite bad people to live with you or to be in your presence. Sometimes you actually have to leave the presence of people who are bad and who are toxic people. I received an email from someone the other day saying, this person has always been really mean to me in my life, and they want to be a part of my life. What should I do? And is it Buddhist to just, cut them out of my life? And the answer is, as long as you don't hate them, it's fine to take yourself out of that place, take yourself away from that person. It's okay. It's okay to distance yourself from that person and not be with them. I think it's really important. It's really important. You have to be distant from them, but you continue to pray for them. I don't know if that answers the question. Jody, did that help a little bit, or it's okay? Other questions for people? We have about we have a few minutes left before the top of the hour, and I appreciate the offer to share the story. I'm trying to figure out how to use our time. We have a person who's offered to share a story. So Leona May, go ahead and share what you can of your story, and then I'll do a summary of our program.
I have a question. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a question?
Oh, but I'm sorry for this bad connection. I only have an iPhone. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. I hear you.
Okay, I have to put it on very close. I have a son-in-law and he's a drug addict. I just found out, and he's dealing with drugs, and I have a grandchild from him and my daughter. And I love my grandchild, but I have to meet this man. And it's very difficult in a way for me, because I know it's very toxic for the daughter, and I mean for the grandchild. It's very toxic, this atmosphere. I'm in between. You see what I mean?
Oh, yes.
And then my daughter, she protects him. She seems to close her eyes and not want to see. So it's very difficult, my position I try to be compassionate, but I'd like to stay out, like you just said, but I cannot because of the child.
Yes. Yeah, this is one of the most difficult situations that any mother or father would ever encounter. What I will do, because there are three ways to approach this. There's the spiritual way to approach this. There is the practical way to approach this, and there's the emotional way to approach this.
Yeah.
So there's like spiritual, emotional, and practical. And I think you need support from all three of these directions. I have a friend, and I will, who lives in another part of the U.S. May I have her? May I have her talk to you?
Oh yes, please. Oh
Okay,
yes.
Yes. This has, because she had this exact thing happen in her family.
Oh
And then then the two of you can talk as mothers.
yes, very good.
Yeah, that would be some emotional support for you.
Yes.
But I think it will also be very important for you to have practical support, because the practical aspect is the safety of the child. This is the most important thing. And I don't know what your rules and laws are there, but in some cases there can be an endangerment of the child that is against the law. I don't know what your laws are like, but if there is this potential, you have to investigate with legal remedy to see if there is any way that you can help this man and your grandchild both, because it's very delicate. It's a very delicate situation, because sometimes if you act in one way, it makes the situation worse.
Exactly.
But sometimes if you don't act, it makes the situation worse.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important that you get emotional support from other people who have experienced this exact same thing.
Exactly. Yes. Mhm.
And then from the spiritual point of view, prayer is important, and trying not to close your heart. But I do think right now, because this is an immediate situation, I think we need to help you find as much support as you can get. There may be other people here who have experienced this with drug abuse in their family, if they want to share about that. But if there's any practical advice they can share, I will ask and see.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody? There may be somebody here who has some practical experience with this, and if not, then.
Well, I know I can say that most of my family had an unspoken addiction to alcohol, and I grew up with that I really, I'm so sorry you're having to go through this.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the connection is so bad. I can hardly hear you, so I have to put the iPhone on my ears. So that's. But
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Do you have support there from the law at all, or no?
There's no proof. There's no evidence. So there's nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
We have no proof. I have no proof. I cannot prove anything. So.
Right.
Okay. Yeah,
well,
it's
then,
difficult, but I can go to a psychiatric in October, so maybe he can help me. Therapist,
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. That is also very helpful, because that way you can get some of the psychological and emotional support, and maybe some practical ideas also.
Yes, and maybe the address you have, maybe this you could give me.
Yes.
Later.
Yeah, I will talk to my friend this evening and see if she can be in touch with you. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Lama.
Yeah, I mean, she experienced this exact same thing, and I'll see if she can be of help to you.
Thank you so much, Lama.
Yeah. In the meantime, I know we're all thinking about you, Jenny, and we're going to pray. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you
and I see.
very much.
Yeah, no, very good. And Leona, may you want to share about Al-Anon, did you say? We have somebody saying, you're muted. Let's see.
I posted the website for Al-Anon, AL-ANON.org. They're for folks who love alcoholics, and they have a lot of self-care tools and a lot of help.
Oh, okay, great. Jenny, can you see that or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
Then, okay, then since you can't see it, you have, will you do me a favor, Jenny, and send me an email? Okay. Do you have my email?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I will.
And
Afterwards, I will. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and then I'll send that to you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Well, that I just, my heart is in prayer for you and for the family, because everybody has Buddha nature, including the people we don't like, and the people who are harmful. Even they have Buddha nature, so we can, at least through our connection with them, pray for them to experience healing in their life. But in the meantime, we should do everything we can for the protection of ourselves and the others. We have to be able to do that, because we have a precious human opportunity, and so protecting them as best we can. So we'll try to get you some support. Okay.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Jenny. Yeah. And we are almost at 5 minutes past the hour. So I know some of you will have to go. But I want to, because Leona May offered to share about her story a little bit, if you'd like to share.
When I was 30, I was contacted by the police to give a statement against my father, who had harmed me when I was a child and was harming children again. I was obsessed with wanting to harm him. And I met Lama Kathy and talked about that because it bothered me that I was so obsessed with harming someone. That's not who I thought of myself to be. And I couldn't stop myself. And she offered the practice of Tonglen. And it started with, may my hatred for someone who harmed me contain the hatred of all people who've been harmed. And by my suffering through it, may we all attain Buddhahood. To slowly pray for my father in that way, and to picture him as a small child was a way I could pray for him. I couldn't pray for a 60-year-old assaulting children. I could pray for a small child. And slowly, gradually, I was able to not hate. And what freedom, what freedom.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And I think that this that the inner potential we have for goodness and compassion and love, it's there for everyone. And in some people, it gets crushed by circumstances and by the harm that comes to us from others and so on. And then this is why so much suffering turns into addiction of one kind or another, because it's so hard to be human, and it's so hard to feel the suffering that we feel.
Exactly.
And and so I feel like the more that we can do as human beings to train ourselves in kindness toward ourselves and kindness toward our situation, and then turning prayerfully toward those who do harm, and that, but making sure that they do not harm others if we can, if we have the power to do that. That's the best. So we will do our best to bring these things together for ourselves and for others. So to summarize today's talk, we're all human and we all experience suffering. The Buddha taught many methods to bring an end to suffering in our life. He taught the practice of meditation. He taught the practice of ethics and morality. And he also taught the practices of love, compassion, and wisdom. And so for us, the Bodhisattva path starts as a wish, a simple wish to be of benefit to others and to attain Buddhahood for their benefit. And then it continues as the practices of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity in order to accomplish awakening for ourselves and the purification of our negative karma, obstacles, and obscurations, and the attainment of Buddhahood for the sake of others. Because once our Buddha potential is ripened and freed, then we will become beneficial to people in ways that we could never have imagined. Imagine what it would be like for us if we didn't have the obstacles and obscurations we have right now. How would it be if we could then plainly and clearly help other people without any obstacle or problem? And how would it be if we knew that every relationship we had in our life was meaningful? Well, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said that when a person takes the Bodhisattva vow, from that moment on, all of their relationships become more meaningful because they are living their lives for the benefit of others now. And so that means that anyone you meet, you're actually benefiting them without really even knowing it, because of this intention that you want to liberate them from samsara. So it's my hope that by hearing these teachings today, this will inspire the practice for you of Tonglen. We didn't get to talk about Tonglen today, but if you can just pray for others to have goodness, that's the start of it. Just praying for others to have goodness. That's the start of Tonglen. And then I'll have the folks here at Santa Monica send you an instruction in Tonglen in the next day or two. I'll have them post it on their website or some such, and you can visit and get a copy of that, because I think it will be really helpful. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche's teaching in the book Dharma Paths on Tonglen is so easy to practice. And so I'll make sure that you get a copy of that so you can practice too. So we have to stop here for today, but thank you for for being with us today. And then also, I will be seeing you again tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to talk about the Mahamudra lineage and what lineage means, and this special practice of Mahamudra that is our own lineage's special practice for Buddhahood. So we'll be meeting here same time tomorrow to talk about lineage. So we'll gather together all the merit from this conversation today, and we make the aspiration that any merit that comes from this, may it be of benefit to us and all sentient beings. I'll recite the short dedication prayer in English. Through this merit, may all achieve the omniscience of Buddhahood. May it defeat our common enemy, wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings. May we free all beings. May we free all beings. Okay, thank you, everyone.